Over the last few months, I've had a number of people contacting me through either comments in my videos or through private messages, asking me how I go about grading the Pocket 2 footage that I put in my videos. So I wanted to create this brief video to show you what I do, so you can then implement it and make your videos look the best they can. Now, this is going to be a grading video, so I'll be using DaVinci Resolve for this. But the basics and principles that I'm going to show you work with whatever platform you use, whether it's DaVinci Resolve or Final Cut Pro. I always recommend people to download and use DaVinci Resolve for the simple fact that it's a professional tool that is completely free of charge, and you don't get many free things in life these days. You can then decide whether you want to upgrade to the studio version or not, but the principles and concepts that I show you here work with whatever platform you use, whether it is DaVinci Resolve, Final Cut, or whatever other flavor. I've taken a range of shots, from moving shots to static, from indoors and outdoors, so you can see how I do my grading, and hopefully you can implement some of those techniques to your footage to make sure that they look amazing. And without further ado, let's get right into it. So here we are into DaVinci Resolve. The first thing that you need to do before you even bring any footage in is to make sure that you have the correct settings, okay? This is really important. Now, I like to use 25 frames per second, so I select 25 frames per second. Make sure that you do 8-bit for your timeline if you have a system that is not relatively new, otherwise 10-bit. I usually like, for the sake of speeding things up, stick it to 8-bit. And I select this for the cache on LT, and I give it this 1 second. These are the settings that I always use. And what is really important is the timeline color space. This is really important that you set it right, and you need to set it to sRGB, because otherwise the footage is not going to look great. How many times you've exported the video from your editing platform for it to look different, and you tweak all the settings and you just can never get it the same way that it looks on your editing software? Well, this is because you're using a color space that is different to the one that you recorded at. So look at the image. When I select save, it changes, okay? Now, what is also really important, okay, is that when you come to exporting whatever it is that you have on your timeline, and we'll come to this later on, that you go to the advanced settings and the color space, you also set it to sRGB, okay? If you do this, your footage will look exactly the same as in your edit platform. So that will save you a lot of time and headaches. So anyway, you can just drag the folder with your footage. You don't need to go one by one selecting all the clips. You can just literally just drag and drop. And you come into the timeline. Grading, usually you do it at the very end, okay? So even if you have a timeline with loads of video tracks, you just need to make sure that you bring the video clips to as little video tracks as possible. In this case, only just one video track. No more than 2, please, unless you have a very complex sequence or shot where you're stacking up video layers. But if you just got simple audio footage, just stick it to this one single video layer, okay? It will make your life a lot simpler. So this is the grading suite within DaVinci Resolve, and I was doing something similar with a friend of mine a couple of weeks ago, and I remember his reaction when we arrived to this window, and his reaction was like, whoa, I'm really, really scared. As a matter of fact, I also had the timeline at the time. There was a really complex timeline, and we were going through the grading. So he was really apprehensive about doing the grading. So he looked at this and he was like, I don't even know where to start. This is just too scary, too complicated. I have absolutely no idea what I'm looking at. So again, this is not a grading course. In grading, you can do incredible things. We're not going to go in depth as to what you can do to an image. I mean, you can do all sorts of things. You can create depth of field. You can change the color of the top. You can finesse the face. I mean, you can literally finesse the face. There is a little plugin called Face Beauty or something like that, and you can literally go into the face, the eyes, the lips, the nose, the forehead, the chin. I mean, it's really incredible. But if you want that kind of knowledge, you need to go into a grading course. This is basic knowledge to get footage looking good, okay? Now, first and foremost, before we even get started, you need to understand what you're looking at, okay? Let's remove the timeline. These are your color wheels. These are two things that you need to really understand, okay? The Parade and the Vectorscope, okay? This is from the times of broadcast television back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and it's still in today. This, you have the colors here, and the colors cannot go past this box, okay? So you go your blues, your magentas, your reds, your yellows, your greens, the cyan. The color cannot leave these boxes, otherwise it clips, and the televisions, it's just too much color and it just won't reproduce it correctly. So you need to make sure that the colors stay within those parameters. And obviously computer screens are much more forgiving. You can push the envelope a little bit more, but if you stay within these boxes, these days you never know where your footage is going to be seen, you are safe. And then the Parade. So this is the range that you need to stay within. So your brights should not go over 1023, and your darks should not go below 0. Now they can, of course, they can go well beyond 1023, and your darks can go well below 0. Okay. Now what happens is that if your brights go over 1023, which is the maximum, anything that is white in the image is pure white. There is no information there, it's just white. And the opposite happens when it goes below 0. Anything that goes below 0, any black, any darks, like here, there is no data, it's just black. Okay? So it might be something that you are totally cool, you might want this specific look, and then be my guest, that's great. But if you want to keep the information, look at how much information you're losing, you know? All of that. Now, if you keep it within the 0 or just touching the 0, is dark, but you can see information there. The moment it starts to go below 0, you can start to lose. So this is a decision that you and only you have to decide, okay? And the same with the whites. You know, look at the sky. You know, the moment it goes, that's just white. There is nothing there. It's just white, okay? So any information that was there, let's just reset this. It's gone. And now nodes, okay? So this is something that some people find complicated, and I'll explain this to you quite briefly. Think of this as a cheeseburger, okay? So you can have just the effect, and you can grade if you do a basic effect. But let's say that you start to do like rotoscoping, and then masking, and then some facial beauty shots, and then you want to change the top, and then things start to get complicated. So rather than just do everything on top of just this one file that then you can't control individually, you stack serial nodes. And on each, this is a copy of the previous one and a copy, but they live individually and independently. So imagine you have like a cheeseburger where you have your burger, your cheese, your bacon, your bread, and then the rest. So you could have this one for, let's say, your masking effect. Then you can have this for your beauty treatment effect. This is for maybe changing the color of the top, or changing the color of the trees, or and then as you do your grade, you can then individually tweak let's say the color of the top without affecting anything else along. Okay, this is what these nodes are there for. Okay, now it can be quite confusing, but at least I hope that you have now got the gist of it, really. Let's just delete those. For the simple grade that we're doing, this is more than enough. We don't really need to go into complicated grading. So this is really basic. And hopefully now you have a basic understanding of grading, okay? And when you look at the screen like this, you don't just go like my friend, whoa, I'm just too scared. This is too much. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to shoot with a normal color space, and that's it. Okay, so things that you need to do in this shot, for instance, okay? Well, first we bring the brightness down a little, and we bring the darks down a little, okay? So let's just get the saturation up. Let's do 80, and maybe just check. And again, this is trial and error. You need to see what works for you based on the look that you're going for. But this is a big improvement from what it was originally to now. Now, what D-Cine gives you is the ability to choose. You can choose to say, well, I want to crank this up to like ultra contrast or ultra color. Okay, this to me looks very unnatural, but maybe this is the look that you're looking for, and that's what D-Cine gives you: control over the image. If you have your footage shot on the normal color space, you're stuck. It's baked into the signal. That saturation and that contrast is baked in. It's really difficult to then roll back. You can then choose to give it extra saturation, for instance, 1.1. So that's already looking good. I would probably bring this up a little. And that's a big improvement from what it was before. And that's much better. Let's set the playback to off, full raise. So that's already looking good. So that's without, that's with. Okay, so that's what this scene is. Okay, so here we have this shot. Let's just edit that out. All right. So we start there and it's a nice sun reveal. Okay, so now one thing that you can do is in DaVinci Resolve, I'm sure it's the same with every other platform. So you basically select the clip and then command the one that you want to copy and paste the clip from, and then just apply grade, and it might just be everything that you need to do. That looks really nice. Now it doesn't work with every situation because obviously the color temperature changes, the settings and everything, and this may be something that you're not very happy. So for instance, here you can see that the darks are really dark. What happens is that this is completely black, but if you select the real-time effects, you can see that how much information you're losing by having that so low. So you can decide, well, I copy and paste the effect, but I want to tweak it to my liking. I want to make sure that my blacks are over 0. So you still have a beautiful looking image, but your darks keep the information in the shot. So that's really nice, much better than that. And obviously you could go and say, well, I want it to be punchier, I want it to be a bit more contrasty, still always with the parade above 0. You want to make sure that that's above 0 so that you keep the information. So that's a big improvement from the original footage. That's a big improvement. Okay, so next, that one. Okay, so that's me talking to camera, and again we can try and see if it's gonna look good. Well, as you can clearly see, it doesn't quite look good. It's just too bluish. You could also do an automatic grade, and now it's a bit too pinkish. Okay, so let's just reset, and again we're just gonna do manually. We just make sure that the darks are above 0. Make sure that that's fine. Bring this down a bit. Just bring the color up, and maybe the color temperature. Now, color temperature, you might get it right or you might get it wrong. Hopefully you got it all right. But if you get it wrong, okay, this is what you can do, okay? Let's imagine, for instance, that you got your shot with a wrong color temperature. Just take this picker and then just find something white in the frame and then just hit it, okay? And now you've got the correct color temperature, and you can now decide whether that's too hot, whether you need to tweak it. You might decide I want more or I want less. And look at what happens here in the parade, okay? As I tweak, it goes up and down. That's what happens, okay? So that's the reading that I got. And for me, it's probably just around there, okay? So you can then have a color boost if you want. And also one thing that is helpful is if you do faces, just do a little bit on the midtones, just do -20, and it will remove a little bit of, smooth out the skin without really softening the overall image, just a tiny bit so that the person might look better, okay? And that now looks quite good. That's the difference between no grade and grade. And again, you can go and make it darker. You can probably increase the saturation, the contrast here a bit more, and obviously that makes things kind of pop a little bit more. So that's the original, that's the finished product. And obviously you can go on the soft even crazy and -50, and then it softens the skin even a bit more, and it's almost like makes you look a bit younger than what you really are. You need to be careful if you do this, because if you say that you go to the absolute maximum, which is 100, things start to look funny. I mean, that looks fake to me. And the background and the trees, you see how much information is lost on the ground. So you need to be careful. You need to understand what it is that you're doing. So you can see here, if we stick to -20, you're not losing that much information, just a little bit. It's very subtle. You can go up to 30, 40, but you need to always bear that in mind, okay? That you might be affecting the rest of the image. So it's entirely up to you. You can go, let's say that you create a 0 node, and this is in the studio version. And you can then go into face refinement. And here you then, DaVinci Resolve can analyze the face. And once you finished analyze the face, you can then do all sorts of crazy things to the face. And it's really, really incredible what you can do. Okay, so we finished now with this tracking. So now DaVinci Resolve has tracked the face. And you can do all sorts of incredible things here. Let's just bring this a bit bigger. Look, you can do shine removal. Okay, so look how it affects shine removal. You can then say eye retouching. Say you can brighten the eyes. You can brighten the light under the eyes. You can, if you have eye bags, you can remove them. You know, you can literally take years out of someone. You know. You can do lip retouching, you can saturate the lip, and you see it's affecting the lip only. The upper lip, you can do the cheeks, the blush, you know, you can, the forehead, this is one that, you know, it's pretty incredible. Like, you look at the forehead, and it's almost like, you know, I've just taken 10 years of me. Obviously, once you go into these effects, you know, things start to slow down. Let's just bring it down to half res. You can clearly see, obviously this looks completely natural because I'm doing a quick demonstration here, but it's pretty incredible. You know, you could literally go through the entire face, you know. So these are things that you can do with the studio version, but for the basic stuff, this is really more than enough. And here you could literally also copy and paste if you want. That would probably be just about right. Maybe I tweak this a little bit. So for instance, I bring this down within a certain range there. Maybe I lift the gamma a little bit. And you could literally bring the darks down. Bring this down now a little bit. Up the color temperature, maybe you can bring it down there, and maybe just do a little bit of contrast. So you see that's before and after. And as you can clearly see, it's very simple, very straightforward. The one thing that you need to almost always focus is this section and that section. Make sure that they are within limits. Just bring it down a little bit. And obviously you can still go on. What it would mean is if I now push this up, look what's going to happen to this section here, okay? Look, if I just go like this, like that. You see, that's all literally blown out. There is no information on the whites, okay? If I bring it down, you can see information here, you can see information there. Look, if I bring that tree is almost gone. Look at all this information that you would lose. So all of this gone. So this is what you gain or you lose if you go over or under. And again, it's entirely up to the look that you're looking for. So next clip is a moving shot. And here, obviously, you got the challenge that you go from bright areas to dark areas. And it's really difficult at times because obviously if you grade for the brights, your darks are going to be compromised, you know. This is the type of shots that you need to choose what it is that you want to focus on. Is it the dark areas or the bright areas? Because you can't do both. Okay. So again, what I would do is I would make sure that my blacks are just above there, and I would crank up the gamma a little bit, and then I would push up the colors, let's say to 90 because it's a forest, maybe 80, that might be a bit too hot. And just bring this the playback off, and maybe just do a little bit, maybe it might be too dark now, but that's looking infinitely better already. And you see, all I did was make sure that my darks are above 0, that I push up the brightness still within the 1023, and added color. Really, this is all you need. You could literally go now crazy and you could introduce elements and masking people out as you see them and do all sorts of crazy things. You could isolate the greens, the colors, and make them yellow, and you can turn a green forest into an autumn forest. You can do all sorts of crazy things. But the bottom line is that you're not here for advanced grading. I'm not giving you an advanced grading video that would take many chapters and lots of examples and practice. This is just to show you how easy it is to grade a footage as long as you shoot it on the D-Cine color space. Because what happens is when you shoot on the D-Cine color space, for instance, let's bring this one, you get as much of the latitude as the camera offers. And these cameras don't offer an incredible latitude to start with. So you want to make sure that you capture as much as possible so you can then grade in post. Really easy. As you can see, there is no need to be scared about the grading suite. And this works the same everywhere. Every editing platform that has a little bit of grading, basic grading, will give you control, the jog wheels and the Parade and the Vectorscope. And yes, you can go, like for instance, look, this is exactly what I was telling you about. The cyan is going towards the cyan, the green is going towards the green, you know. So if this was to be absolutely crazy, let's just go absolutely mental with the color, okay? You see, that's absolutely borderline totally illegal. The colors are way out the scale, you know. You don't want that. If you play this on a TV, it's going to look absolutely horrendous, you know. So just bring it within a range. Sometimes if you have red, for instance, say that you are taxis that are in vehicles that are red, or buses, the red is a color that you can easily pick with just a little bit of saturation. Just make sure that it's hitting there, okay? And then you'll be fine. You'll be fine. As you can see, these changes, that would probably be too bright. You see, it's way off. So you just scale it down, let's say 870. So that's probably going, no, we don't want that. That's, you see, that's too hot now, too bright. We need to bring this down. And there. And then just to brighten it up, just bring the gamma up a bit, and then you get something that looks a lot more natural and it's not clipping. Because you could see here, this is clipping. You can see there is almost, you lost information there. The yellow is just too yellow. It's just like yellow. There is no data there. Now we have a much more pleasant image to look at. Okay, so this is why this is so important, to make sure that you stay within those parameters, okay? And your darks stay just above 0. You could go a little bit, you can push it down a little bit, but you just need to be mindful that if they keep on going down, those dark areas, you lost all the information, okay? So just keep it there, and it looks absolutely amazing. Another thing that you can do, for instance, in a shot like this, is to create fake depth of field. For instance, in this shot, if you play back, you know, the background, even though I'm in focus, the background might be a little bit distracting because it's got a pattern there, okay? So I've got a video that will appear just around here any moment now, where I go through all the effects that you need to do, or all the work that you need to do to create depth of field, okay? And that's it. I hope I've helped you to demystify the grading of footage from the DJI Pocket 2, and that you now feel much more confident shooting with a D-Cine color space with the Pocket 2 and not with a normal color space, which is the one color space that I absolutely hate. I hope you enjoyed this video and got some useful tips that you can implement at your end and will help you make your footage look absolutely amazing. If you ever wonder what the best camera settings are for the Pocket 2, I've got a video appearing just about here in which I go through everything that you need to know to get the best looking footage out of the Pocket 2. And with that being said, if you enjoyed this video and you got something positive out of it, smash that like button. It helps with the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And I'll see you in the next video.